Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
Single dad skipped his birthday dinner to help an alien single mom, but he never expected this. Mike Stanley wiped the grease from his calloused hands with a rag that had seen better days. The setting sun cast long shadows across his modest refueling station, painting the worn metal structures in hues of amber and gold. 6 years of running this place solo had etched lines around his eyes that made him look older than his 34 years. But the physical labor had kept his frame solid and strong. Daddy? Daddy! Emmy's voice rang out as she burst through the workshop door, her pigtails bouncing with each step. I finished your cake! It's chocolate, with extra chocolate, because it's your birthday. Mike's exhaustion melted away as he scooped up his 6-year-old daughter. Is that right, Pumpkin? Sounds like the best cake in the galaxy. It is, and I put 6 candles on it because I'm 6. And then another big one for good luck, she explained with absolute seriousness. Perfect math, Mike chuckled, setting her down. Let me close up, and we'll have our special dinner, okay? Emmy nodded enthusiastically before her attention shifted to the viewport. Daddy, look! A shooting star! But Mike's trained eye recognized it wasn't a shooting star at all. The object was moving too deliberately, its descent controlled despite the trail of smoke it left behind. A damaged ship heading straight for his landing pad. Emmy, go inside the house, he instructed, his voice calm but firm. But now, sweetheart, please. The ship, a sleek yacht with elegant curves that screamed expensive, touched down with a screech of metal that made Mike wince. The vessel was clearly damaged. One thruster was completely dark, and the hull bore scorch marks along its port side. The boarding ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss, and Mike found himself holding his breath. First emerged a humanoid female figure with skin the color of a clear summer sky and silver blue braids cascading down her back. Her spacesuit, though dusty and torn in places, was clearly a fine make, with golden accents that caught the dying sunlight. Behind her, a teenage girl with the same blue complexion followed, her eyes darting nervously around the station. I apologize for the unannounced arrival, the woman said, her voice carrying a melodic accent Mike couldn't place. Our ship sustained damage, and your station was the only safe harbor within range. No problem, Mike replied automatically, years of customer service kicking in, despite his birthday dinner plans evaporating. I'm Mike Stanley. This is my place. I am Niara Valen, she said with a slight bow. This is my daughter, Limi. The teenager offered a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mike noticed how she kept glancing back at the ship, then scanning the horizon. What happened to your vessel? He asked, already moving closer to examine the damage. Asteroid field, Niara answered quickly. Too quickly. We were forced to navigate through an unmarked section. Mike nodded, though he didn't believe her for a second. The scorch marks on the hull weren't from asteroid impacts. They were from weapons fire. But it wasn't his business. Not yet, anyway. I can take a look, he offered. Might be able to get you airborne again tonight. Relief washed over Niara's features. We would be most grateful. We need to reach our destination as soon as possible. As Mike approached the ship, Emmy appeared at the workshop door, cake in hand, her curiosity evidently overcoming her obedience. Daddy, your cake is getting cold, she called out. Mike turned, about to send her back inside when Niara's expression softened. It's your birthday? She asked. Yeah, Mike shrugged. No big deal. I'm so sorry to intrude on your celebration, Niara said, genuine regret in her voice. It's just dinner with my kid, Mike replied, though the disappointment must have shown on his face. Emmy approached cautiously, studying the blue-skinned visitors with undisguised fascination. Are you aliens? She asked Lemmy directly. The teenage girl seemed startled by the direct question, but a small, genuine smile finally appeared. I suppose to you we are. We're Azurians. Cool, Emmy exclaimed. Want some cake? Daddy has to fix your spaceship, but cake makes everything better. While Emmy proudly served slices of her lopsided but lovingly made cake, Mike got to work on the damaged engine. The more he examined it, the more concerned he became. The yacht's propulsion system had been hit by a precision weapon, military grade. These weren't travelers who'd had a run-in with pirates. They were running from something far more organized. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mike caught Nyara and Limi exchanging worried glances. Limi whispered something to her mother, who shook her head firmly before plastering on a smile when she noticed Mike watching. He was about to ask what was really going on when a distant hum caught his attention. 3 dark silhouettes appeared on the horizon, moving fast and low. "Bounty hunters," Nyara whispered, her face draining to a pale blue. "They found us." Mike's stomach dropped as he looked from the approaching ships to Emmy, happily chatting with Limi about her school. Then back to Nyara, whose eyes now held a desperate plea. "How fast do you need this ship running?" he asked, already reaching for his advanced tools. "Immediately," Nyara replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "But I won't endanger you or your daughter. If you could simply point us toward—" "I don't abandon people who need help," Mike cut her off. "And I sure as hell don't throw them to wolves, or whatever those are." He made a split-second decision that would change everything. "Emmy, go pack your overnight bag. The one for adventures, quick as lightning, pumpkin." As Emmy dashed off, excitement rather than fear in her steps, Mike turned back to Nyara. "You've got about 10 minutes to tell me what I'm really getting into here." The approaching ships grew larger on the horizon, and Nyara's expression hardened with resolve. "It's a long story, Mr. Stanley." "Mike," he corrected, hands already flying over the engine components. "And you better start talking fast." "This way," Mike whispered, leading the group toward what appeared to be an ordinary storage shed behind the main workshop. Emmy clutched her backpack, decorated with cartoon spaceships, tightly against her chest, her eyes wide but unafraid. The bounty hunter's ships were less than 2 minutes out. Mike pressed his palm against a concealed scanner, and a section of the floor slid away, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "Down, quickly," he urged, ushering Emmy first, then Limi. The teenager hesitated only briefly before following the younger girl. As Nyara passed him to enter the hidden passage, her shoulder brushed against his chest. Even through the fabric of her flight suit, Mike felt an unexpected jolt of awareness. Their eyes met in the fading light, and something electric passed between them. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice low and intimate. "Few would risk themselves for strangers." "I'm not exactly known for my good decision-making," Mike replied with a half-smile, trying to ignore the subtle floral scent that seemed to emanate from her blue skin. The moment broke as the distant roar of engines grew louder. Mike sealed the entrance behind them and activated the dim emergency lighting that illuminated a narrow corridor leading to a reinforced door. "Welcome to my paranoia project," he announced as the door slid open to reveal a modest but well-equipped bunker. "My late wife, Sarah, always said I was crazy for building this place." The space was roughly 20 by 30 feet, with basic furnishings, storage compartments, and a small kitchenette. A separate door presumably led to sanitation facilities. "This is awesome," Emmy declared, immediately claiming a beanbag chair in the corner. "It's like our secret fort." Limi managed a genuine smile at the younger girl's enthusiasm. "It's certainly better than being captured." Mike moved to a control panel and activated a series of monitors showing different views of the property above. "We should be able to see what they're up to from here." On the largest screen, 3 sleek predatory vessels were touching down around Mike's refueling station. The ships were matte black with red accents, nothing like the standard law enforcement vessels Mike had occasionally encountered. "Those aren't official security forces," he observed, glancing at Nyara. "Want to tell me who's after you and why?" Nyara sighed, her shoulders dropping slightly as she sank onto a utilitarian couch. "They work for Drax Kordath, a high-ranking official in the Hegemony's security division." "The Hegemony?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "I thought they were supposed to be the good guys, galactic peacekeepers and all that." "The public face, yes," Nyara replied bitterly. "The reality is somewhat different." On the monitors, armored figures emerged from the ships, 6 in total. They moved with military precision, weapons drawn. "Emmy, Limi," Mike called. "Why don't you two check out the emergency supplies in that cabinet? See if you can find some snacks?" Once the girls were occupied, Mike lowered his voice. "I'm risking my daughter for you. I deserve the truth." Nyara's luminous eyes met his, and Mike felt that strange connection again, a pull he hadn't experienced since Sarah died. "I worked as a data analyst in the Hegemony's intelligence division," she explained. 6 months ago, I discovered evidence that certain hegemony officials were secretly arming insurgent groups on developing worlds, creating conflicts they could later resolve to expand their influence. And let me guess, Kordath is one of them? He's the mastermind, Nyara confirmed. I compiled the evidence, intending to present it to the Galactic Council, but her voice faltered. They found out, Mike finished for her. She nodded. My husband was killed in what was made to look like an accident. I barely escaped with Leamy. Mike's jaw tightened. The loss of a spouse, he knew that pain intimately. I'm sorry. Above them, the bounty hunters were systematically searching the property. One approached the shed that concealed their hiding place. Will they find us? Nyara asked, tension evident in her voice. Not a chance, Mike assured her. This bunker is shielded against all standard scanning technology. It was designed to withstand, pretty much anything. Nyara's relief was palpable. In the artificial light, her blue skin seemed to glow with an inner luminescence that Mike found increasingly difficult to ignore. You're staring, she noted, but without offense. Sorry, Mike said, feeling heat rise to his face. I don't get many visitors out here, especially not. He trailed off. Blue ones, she suggested with a hint of amusement. Beautiful ones, he corrected before he could stop himself. The air between them seemed to thicken. Nyara's eyes widened slightly and Mike noticed the subtle darkening of her cheeks, her species version of a blush perhaps. The moment was interrupted by Emmy's triumphant, "Found cookies!" from across the room. On the monitors, the bounty hunters continued their search, growing increasingly frustrated. One kicked over a toolbox in apparent anger. They won't give up easily, Nyara warned. Kordath never does. Then we'll just have to be smarter, Mike replied. Once they leave, we can finish repairing your ship and get you somewhere safe. There's nowhere truly safe, she said softly. Not from the hegemony. Their eyes met again, and Mike felt an inexplicable urge to protect this woman and her daughter, to stand against whatever forces pursued them. It was irrational, perhaps even foolish, but undeniable. Maybe not, he acknowledged. But you don't have to face them alone anymore. Nyara's hand found his, her touch cool against his skin. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know me. Mike thought about Sarah, about the years of loneliness, about the walls he'd built around himself and Emmy. Let's just say I recognize someone who needs a helping hand. Above them, the bounty hunters began to regroup at their ships, apparently giving up the search, for now. They're leaving, Mike observed, but his attention remained on Nyara's face, on the grateful smile that transformed her features and sent his pulse racing in a way he'd almost forgotten was possible. 4 hours passed in the bunker. Emmy and Leamy had fallen asleep on adjacent cots, the teenager's protective arm draped over the younger girl in a gesture that warmed Mike's heart. They'd bonded quickly over Emmy's collection of holographic trading cards and Leamy's stories about alien worlds. They look peaceful, Nyara whispered, standing close to Mike as they watched the girls. Children adapt so quickly. Emmy's had practice, Mike replied softly. After Sarah died, we moved 3 times before settling here. She learned to make friends fast. Nyara's cool fingers brushed against his arm. You've done well with her. She's brave, like her father. Or foolhardy, Mike countered with a self-deprecating smile. The jury's still out. On the monitors, the bounty hunters' ships appeared dormant, their engines cold. The armored figures had retreated inside hours ago, apparently settling in for a long wait. They know we're here somewhere, Mike observed. They're just waiting for us to make a move. Nyara nodded, her silver-blue braids catching the dim light. Kordath's hunters are patient predators. It's what makes them effective. Mike checked the time. Just past midnight. His birthday was officially over. Not that it had gone according to plan anyway. He moved to a storage locker and pulled out a bottle and 2 glasses. Terran whiskey, he explained, pouring a finger in each glass. Not exactly birthday cake, but it'll do. Nyara accepted the glass, studying the amber liquid curiously before taking a cautious sip. Her eyes widened and a delighted smile spread across her face. It's, warming, she said with surprise. Like liquid starlight. That's poetic for rot gut, Mike chuckled, enjoying the way her expression brightened. On Azuria, we have a similar drink made from fermented ocean flora, she explained, but it lacks this intensity. Mike found himself watching the way her throat moved as she took another sip, how her blue fingers contrasted against the glass. The bunker suddenly felt much smaller, more intimate. I should check the perimeter sensors again, he said abruptly, needing distance from the confusing feelings stirring within him. At the control panel, Mike cycled through exterior cameras, freezing when he spotted something moving near the workshop. Drones, he muttered, at least 4 of them. Nyara joined him, standing close enough that he could feel the coolness radiating from her skin. Surveillance models. They'll be scanning for heat signatures, movement, anything unusual. So much for sneaking out to fix your ship, Mike sighed. We're trapped until they give up. Which could be days, Nyara added grimly. Mike studied the pattern of the drones, an idea forming. Unless we give them something else to chase, huh? He moved to another storage bin and pulled out a collection of colorful items, Emmy's birthday decorations that he'd planned to surprise her with. These balloons are filled with helium, he explained, and these streamers contain a reflective material that plays havoc with standard sensors. If we release them from the emergency vent, they might create enough confusion for us to reach your ship. Nyara's eyes lit up. A diversion, simple but potentially effective. Human solutions often are, Mike replied with a wink. As they prepared the makeshift distraction, they worked in close proximity, hands occasionally brushing, gazes meeting and lingering longer each time. The tension between them grew palpable. In Azurian culture, Nyara said suddenly, her voice low, we believe that shared danger creates a special bond between souls. We have something similar on Earth, Mike responded, his mouth suddenly dry. Foxhole relationships, they're called. Is that what this is? She asked, her luminous eyes searching his. Mike found himself leaning closer. I don't know what this is, but it's intense. The space between them disappeared as their lips met. Tentative at first, then with growing certainty. Her mouth was cooler than a human's, with a subtle sweetness that reminded Mike of wild berries. He pulled back, surprised by his own boldness. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Nyara pressed a finger to his lips. In my culture, apologies for genuine desire are considered dishonest. That's refreshingly straightforward, Mike managed. Humans are fascinating, she murmured, tracing the contour of his jaw with cool fingers. So warm, so impulsive, yet you restrain yourselves with so many rules. Not all of them, Mike replied, drawing her closer again. This time their kiss deepened, her arms encircling his neck as his hands found the small of her back. The differences in their physiology, her cooler temperature, the subtle texture of her skin, only heightened the experience. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Mike was struck by the absurdity of it all. Hiding from alien bounty hunters on his birthday, kissing a blue-skinned woman who'd crashed into his life mere hours ago. We should wake the girls, he said reluctantly. If we're going to make a break for it, now's the time. Nyara nodded, though her hand lingered on his chest. Mike, whatever happens, I want you to know that this, meeting you, has been unexpected in the best possible way. I was just thinking the same thing, he admitted with a smile. As they gently woke Emmy and Leamy, explaining the plan in hushed tones, Mike caught Nyara watching him with an expression that promised more when circumstances allowed. The thought sent a rush of anticipation through him that had nothing to do with their impending escape and everything to do with the connection forming between them. Unexpected, unlikely, but undeniably real. Ready, Mike whispered, his hand hovering over the emergency vent release. Nyara nodded, her eyes reflecting determination in the dim light. Emmy clutched her father's leg while Leamy stood protectively beside her, both girls wide-eyed but resolute. Remember, once the decorations are released, we have about 30 seconds before the drones recalibrate, Mike explained. We move fast, stay low, and head straight for the ship. With a deep breath, he triggered the vent. A burst of colorful balloons and reflective streamers shot upward into the night sky, scattering in all directions on the breeze. Immediately, the surveillance drones abandoned their patrol patterns, darting after the unexpected objects. Now, Mike hissed, leading the group through the bunker's emergency exit, a narrow tunnel that emerged behind a false rock formation 20 yards from the main building. They sprinted across the open ground, Emmy in Mike's arms, Limmy keeping pace with surprising agility. Nyara moved with a fluid grace that belied her earlier exhaustion, her silver-blue braids streaming behind her like metallic ribbons in the moonlight. They reached the yacht just as shouts erupted from the bounty hunters' ships. Their diversion had been discovered. "Get inside and start the pre-launch sequence," Mike instructed Nyara, setting Emmy down. "I need 5 minutes to finish the repairs." "You have 2, Nyara replied, already ushering the girls up the boarding ramp. Mike worked with frantic precision, his hands flying over the damaged engine components. The yacht's propulsion system was sophisticated, but followed basic principles he understood. A fusion coupling here, a bypass there. A shot sizzled past his ear, scorching the hull inches from his head. "Damn it," he muttered, ducking lower as he continued working. 3 armored figures were advancing across the landing pad, weapons raised. Inside the ship, Nyara had reached the cockpit, the control panel illuminated under her touch, systems coming online with a reassuring hum. Through the viewport, she could see Mike exposed and vulnerable as he worked on the engine. "Lemmy, watch Emmy," she instructed, grabbing a sleek pistol from a hidden compartment before racing back down to the boarding ramp. She took careful aim and fired, not at the bounty hunters themselves, but at the fuel containers stacked near the workshop. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but the flash and smoke provided momentary confusion. "Mike, now," she called. He slammed the engine housing closed and sprinted for the ramp, diving aboard as weapons fire peppered the ground behind him. Nyara slapped the ramp control, and it began to close as she helped Mike to his feet. Their faces were inches apart, both breathing hard from the adrenaline rush. For a heartbeat, the chaos outside faded away as their eyes locked. "Nice shooting," Mike managed, a crooked smile forming despite the danger. "Nice repair job," she countered, her cool fingers lingering on his arm. The moment shattered as the ship rocked violently. One of the hunters had scored a direct hit on their starboard stabilizer. "We need to go," Mike urged, following Nyara to the cockpit where the girls waited anxiously. "Can you fly this thing?" Lemmy asked as Mike dropped into the co-pilot seat. "I can fly anything with an engine," he replied with more confidence than he felt, studying the unfamiliar controls. "But your mom's probably better at it." Nyara's hands danced across the console, and the yacht lifted shakily from the ground. Another blast rocked them, warning lights flashing across the dashboard. "Starboard stabilizers failing," Mike reported, already rerouting power. "We need altitude before it gives out completely." The yacht lurched upward, its ascent uneven but determined. Below them, the bounty hunters continued firing, but their handheld weapons lacked the power to do serious damage at increasing range. "We're clear," Nyara announced as they broke through the cloud cover, setting course for Dash. A massive impact sent them all lurching forward in their seats. The ship's alarms blared as multiple systems went critical. "One of their ships got airborne," Mike shouted over the noise, checking the rear scanners. "They hit our main propulsion array." The yacht began to lose altitude, its descent accelerating despite Nyara's skilled piloting. "Can we reach the city?" she asked, fighting the controls. Mike shook his head grimly. Not a chance. We need to set down now, while we still have some control." Through the viewport, a vast forest stretched beneath them, dark and forbidding in the moonlight. "There," Mike pointed to a small clearing barely visible among the trees. "It's our only shot." Nyara nodded, her face set in concentration as she guided the failing vessel toward the tiny landing zone. The yacht shuddered violently, systems failing in cascading sequence. "Brace for impact," she called. Mike threw his arm protectively around Emmy as the ship plunged through the last 100 feet, clipping treetops before slamming into the clearing with a bone-jarring impact. Metal screamed as the yacht skidded across the ground, finally coming to rest against a massive fallen tree. For a moment, only the hiss of ruptured coolant lines and the soft ping of settling metal broke the silence. Then Emmy's small voice. "That was way better than the rides at Fun Planet." A startled laugh escaped Mike's throat, relief flooding through him as he quickly checked his daughter for injuries. Finding none, he turned to Nyara and Lemmy, who appeared shaken but unharmed. "Everyone okay?" he asked. Nyara nodded, unbuckling her harness. "Your repair work held. Without it, we wouldn't have made it this far." "Human engineering," Mike quipped with a wink. "Sometimes good enough is good enough." Through the cracked viewport, they could see they'd landed in a densely wooded area. the trees towering around their damaged vessel like ancient guardians. The pursuing ship's engines could be heard in the distance, circling. "They'll find us soon," Nyara said quietly. "The yacht's energy signature will lead them right to us." Mike was already moving toward the engine room. "Not if I can help it. I can rig the power core to mask our signature, make us look like background radiation." As he worked, Nyara secured the ship's emergency supplies and prepared the girls for what might be a long trek through unfamiliar wilderness. When Mike returned to the main cabin, she was waiting with a small pack ready for him. "You continue to surprise me, Mike Stanley," she said softly. "Most beings would be cursing their fate right now." He shrugged, accepting the pack. "Cursing doesn't fix engines or throw off bounty hunters. Besides," he added with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, "I've had worse birthdays." In the dim emergency lighting, Nyara's blue skin seemed to glow with an inner light. Without warning, she leaned forward and pressed her cool lips to his in a brief but intense kiss. "For luck," she explained, the darker blue blush spreading across her cheeks. "An Azurian tradition." "I like your traditions," Mike replied, his voice husky. "We should explore more of them when we're not running for our lives." The promise in her eyes sent a jolt of electricity through him that had nothing to do with their dangerous situation and everything to do with the unexpected connection forming between them. Human and Azurian, thrown together by chance but choosing to face danger side by side. Dawn broke over the alien forest, filtering through canopies of iridescent leaves that reminded Mike of Earth's maples. And if maples glowed faintly purple at sunrise, they'd been hiking for hours, putting distance between themselves and the crashed yacht. "Look, Daddy!" Emmy pointed excitedly at a cluster of plump, ruby-colored berries hanging from a nearby bush. "Can we eat those?" Mike knelt to examine them, noting their familiar structure. "These look almost exactly like raspberries from Earth," he said, plucking one and sniffing it cautiously. "Similar cell structure, too." "You can identify alien plant life?" Nyara asked, impressed. Mike shrugged. "My grandfather was a botanist. I spent summers helping in his greenhouse." He popped the berry into his mouth. "Tastes like raspberry mixed with cinnamon? It's safe." "Ah, remarkable," Nyara murmured. "Most species would require scanning equipment to determine that." "Humans have good instincts," Mike replied with a wink, gathering more berries for the girls. As they continued through the forest, Mike identified several more edible plants and a freshwater spring that bubbled up through rocks similar to limestone. The familiarity of the environment boosted their spirits, especially Emmy's, who treated the trek like an adventure rather than an escape. By midday, they discovered a small cave system partially hidden behind a waterfall. The entrance was narrow but opened into a spacious chamber, dry and defensible. "We should rest here," Mike suggested, setting down their packs. "I'll rig some basic alarms at the entrance in case our friends decide to come looking." While Mike worked, Nyara unpacked their meager supplies. Leamy helped Emmy create a comfortable sleeping area from soft moss they'd gathered along the way. "Your father is quite extraordinary," Nyara commented to Leamy, as they watched Mike fashion a simple but effective perimeter alarm using components salvaged from the yacht. "For a human?" Leamy asked with teenage directness. "For any species," Nyara corrected. "The hegemony teaches that humans are technologically advanced, but primitive in their thinking, too emotional, too impulsive. Yet Mike's decisions have been perfectly logical while still driven by compassion." "Maybe that's why the hegemony fears them," Leamy suggested. "They combine intellect with instinct in a way our leaders can't control." Nyara considered her daughter's insight with surprise. "When did you become so perceptive?" "When Dad died," Leamy answered simply. "I had to start paying attention." The conversation halted as Mike returned, satisfaction evident in his stride. "We're secure. Anyone comes within 20 meters of this place will know." "Excellent," Nyara replied, her admiration clear in her voice. "Now perhaps you should rest. You've been going non-stop since we crashed." "I'm fine," Mike insisted, though the fatigue lines around his eyes told a different story. "Azurians can sense bioenergetic patterns," Nyara informed him, moving closer. "Yours indicates extreme exhaustion." "Is that right?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "What else can you sense?" The air between them thickened with unspoken tension. Nyara's lips curved into a subtle smile. Many things, some quite interesting. Emmy's voice broke the moment. Daddy, Limi's going to teach me Azurian hand-clapping games. Can we go by the water to practice? Mike glanced at Nyara, who nodded reassuringly. The cave has only one entrance, and your alarms will warn us of any approach. They'll be safe within sight of the cave. After the girls left, a comfortable silence settled between the adults. Mike sat heavily on a natural stone shelf, finally allowing his exhaustion to show. You should have told me you were injured, Nyara said, noticing the dark stain on his sleeve for the first time. It's just a graze from the firefight, Mike dismissed, though he winced when she gently rolled up his sleeve to reveal a nasty energy weapon burn. On Azuria, hiding injuries from your battle companions is considered foolishly prideful, she chided, retrieving a small medical kit from her pack. On Earth, we call it not worrying people unnecessarily, he countered with a tired smile. As Anyara tended his wound with cool, gentle fingers, Mike found himself studying her face. The delicate patterns of slightly darker blue that traced her cheekbones, the silver flecks in her eyes that caught the filtered light. You're staring again, she noted, but her tone was warm. Hard not to, Mike admitted. You're beautiful in any light, but something about this cave makes you glow. The darker blue flush spread across her cheeks. Azurians have bioluminescent properties that respond to emotional states. It's difficult to control around you. So you're literally lighting up because of me? Mike grinned. That's quite the compliment. In my culture, it's rather revealing, she confessed, like your human blushing, but more specific in what it communicates. And what is it communicating right now? Mike asked, his voice dropping lower. Instead of answering, Nyara leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. Unlike their earlier kiss, this one lingered, deepened. Mike's hand came up to cradle the back of her head, her braids cool and silky against his fingers. When they finally parted, Nyara's skin was luminous, casting a soft blue glow around them. That should answer your question, she whispered. A sudden electronic chirp from Mike's alarm system shattered the moment. They sprang apart, instantly alert. Someone's coming, Mike whispered, moving silently to the cave entrance. Nyara followed, her hand on the pistol at her hip. Through the curtain of water, they spotted movement. Not the armored bounty hunters they expected, but small, lithe figures with bark-textured skin and large, luminous eyes. Indigenous forest dwellers, moving with perfect stealth through the underbrush. They've found Limi and Emmy, Nyara breathed, pointing to where the girls sat by the stream, now surrounded by curious natives. They don't look hostile, Mike observed. Emmy's showing them her trading cards, and they seem fascinated. Indeed, the forest beings were gathered around Emmy in a semicircle, chittering excitedly as she displayed her holographic collection. Limi stood protectively nearby, but her posture was relaxed. Should we intervene? Nyara asked. Before Mike could answer, his second alarm triggered. A different tone, more urgent. That's the perimeter alarm, he said grimly. Someone else is coming. Multiple someones, from the sound of it. They exchanged a look of understanding. The bounty hunters had found their trail. Get the girls, Mike instructed, already gathering their essential supplies. These forest people might be our only hope. As Nyara slipped out to retrieve the children, Mike caught her arm, pulling her back for one more quick kiss. For luck, he explained with a crooked smile. A human tradition? Her answering smile was radiant. I like your traditions too, Mike Stanley. The Silvani moved like shadows through their forest domain, leading Mike, Nyara, and the girls through passages invisible to untrained eyes. Their bark-textured skin blended perfectly with the surrounding trees, and they communicated in soft chirps that seemed to mimic forest sounds. They're taking us to their village, Nyara whispered to Mike as they climbed higher into the canopy on hidden pathways woven from living branches. It's a great honor. Silvani rarely reveal their homes to outsiders. I think Emmy won them over with her trading cards, Mike replied, watching his daughter ahead of them, holding hands with a small Silvani child who seemed equally fascinated with her pink backpack. The village, when they reached it, took Mike's breath away. Dwellings crafted from living trees spread throughout the upper canopy, connected by swinging bridges and platforms that seemed to float among the iridescent leaves. It was primitive, yet ingenious, a perfect harmony with nature that the most eco-conscious human architects could only dream of achieving. The Silvani Elder, distinguished by elaborate patterns etched into his bark-like skin, welcomed them with a series of melodic chirps that Nyara somehow understood. "He says we are welcome to shelter here," she translated. "The Silvani have no love for the hegemony. They've suffered under their rule for generations." "Tell him we're grateful," Mike said, bowing respectfully to the elder. As night fell, the village came alive with bioluminescent fungi that cast a gentle glow over everything. The Silvani provided a feast of forest fruits and a sweet, nectar-like drink that warmed Mike from the inside out. Later, they were shown to a dwelling fashioned from a hollow tree bowl, surprisingly spacious inside with soft moss bedding and privacy screens interwoven from luminous fibers. "The girls are already asleep," Nyara said as she entered, having just checked on Emmy and Limi in an adjacent dwelling. "Your daughter has made quite an impression. The Silvani children have adopted her as one of their own." "She's good at that," Mike said proudly, "making friends wherever she goes." "Like her father," Nyara replied, settling beside him on the moss bed. In the soft glow of the bioluminescent light, her blue skin seemed to shimmer with its own inner radiance. "The Silvani Elder told me something interesting," she continued. "They've been tracking the bounty hunters since they entered the forest. One hunter has separated from the others, following a false trail the Silvani created." Mike's tactical mind immediately engaged. "An opportunity to even the odds." "My thoughts exactly," Nyara agreed. "With the Silvani's help, we could set a trap, capture him, and learn what Kordat's next move might be. And maybe get our hands on some better equipment," Mike added. Their planning session stretched into the night, the strategic discussion gradually giving way to more personal conversation. Mike found himself telling Nyara about Sarah, about the illness that took her so quickly, about his decision to leave Earth and start fresh where the memories weren't so painful. "You've created a good life for Emmy," Nyara observed. "A safe haven." "Had created," Mike corrected with a rueful smile, "before I decided to help a beautiful fugitive and go on the run from the most powerful organization in the galaxy." "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Mike reached out, tracing the luminous patterns on her cheek with gentle fingers. "Not for a second." The touch ignited something between them, a spark that had been building since their first meeting. Nyara's skin brightened visibly, casting a blue glow over them both as she leaned into his caress. "In Azurian culture," she murmured, "we believe that souls recognize each other across lifetimes. Sometimes a connection forms so quickly because it's simply remembering." "Is that what this is?" Mike asked, drawing her closer. "Remembering?" "It feels that way," she admitted. "I've never experienced such an immediate bond with anyone." Their lips met in a kiss that deepened quickly, years of loneliness dissolving in the heat between them. Mike's hands tangled in her silver blue braids as hers explored the unfamiliar warmth of his skin. "Your temperature rises when you're aroused," she observed with wonder. "Fascinating." Mike laughed softly. "Is that an Azurian way of saying you like what you see?" "We're typically more direct," she replied, her fingers tracing the contours of his chest. "I desire you, Mike Stanley. Does that clarify my position?" "Crystal clear," he murmured against her neck, reveling in the cool silk of her skin. What followed was a dance of discovery. Two beings from different worlds finding common ground in the language of touch and desire. Their cultural differences created moments of surprise and delight rather than obstacles. When they finally lay entwined in the aftermath, Nyara's skin glowed so brightly that the entire dwelling was bathed in blue light. "That was..." Mike searched for words. "Unexpected?" Nyara suggested with a smile. "Extraordinary," he corrected. "Worth skipping a birthday dinner for." She laughed, the sound like silver bells in the quiet night. "I should hope so." Dawn found them planning with the Silvani Elder, mapping out the perfect location for their trap. By midday, they were in position, Mike concealed in the high branches of an ancient tree, Nyara hidden among dense underbrush, and a dozen Silvani warriors virtually invisible in the surrounding forest. The bounty hunter appeared exactly where the Silvani had predicted, following the false trail with single-minded focus. Encased in black armor with red accents, He moved with military precision, weapon at the ready. The trap was sprung with flawless coordination. Sylvanie crafted snares and tangled the hunter's legs while Mike dropped from above, disabling the hunter's weapon system with a device he'd fashioned from salvaged yacht parts. Before the hunter could react, Niara emerged, her pistol trained on the vulnerable joint in his armor, where the helmet met the bodysuit. "Remove your helmet," she commanded. "Slowly." The hunter complied, revealing a reptilian face with vertical pupils that narrowed in hatred. "Cordath will find you," he hissed. "He's already on his way." "Perfect," Mike replied, relieving the hunter of his communication device and scanner. "Then he can join you in Sylvani custody." With the hunter secured in a Sylvani holding cell, a living cage of interwoven branches that grew tighter when struggled against, Mike examined their prize, a military-grade communicator with direct access to the Hegemony Tactical Network. "We can intercept their communications," he explained to Niara, "and better yet, we can transmit your evidence directly to the Galactic Council using their own secure channel. They'll never expect that." Niara's eyes widened. "That's brilliantly simple." "Sometimes the best solutions are," Mike replied with a grin. "Human ingenuity at its finest." As they prepared the transmission, a message came through on the captured communicator. "All units prepare for arrival of command vessel. Cordath arrives within 12 hours. Capture of targets is priority alpha." Mike and Niara exchanged determined looks. The endgame was approaching faster than they had anticipated. "We need to move quickly," Niara said. "Once the evidence is transmitted, Cordath will know exactly where we are." Mike nodded, already formulating a plan. "Then we'll need to be somewhere else. And I think I know just the place." "You want to do what?" Niara stared at Mike in disbelief as they stood beside their crashed yacht, which looked significantly different than when they had abandoned it. "Confront Cordath directly," Mike repeated, adjusting the makeshift defense system he'd been installing around the perimeter, "while simultaneously using this ship as our fortress." After leaving the girls safely hidden with the Sylvani elders, they had returned to the crash site. What had been a broken vessel was now a formidable defensive position. Mike had cannibalized parts from the yacht's luxury systems to create rudimentary shield generators and repurposed the navigation lasers into defensive weapons. "You've been planning this all along," Niara realized, watching him work with newfound admiration. "Let's just say I like to have backup plans for my backup plans," Mike replied with a wink. "It's a human thing." "It's a Mike thing," she corrected, helping him position the final shield generator. "Most species would have surrendered or hidden by now." "Well, most species haven't met Cordath with evidence that could destroy him," Mike pointed out. "We have leverage." The captured communicator chirped, indicating their transmission to the Galactic Council had been received. The evidence against Cordath, detailed records of weapons shipments to insurgents, falsified peace treaties, and orchestrated conflicts, and was now in the hands of the highest authorities. "Phase 1 complete," Mike announced. "Now for Phase 2. Using the same communicator, he opened a direct channel to Cordath's command vessel, which their scanners showed was now in orbit. "This is Mike Stanley," he stated clearly when the connection established. "I believe you're looking for us, Commander Cordath." A moment of silence followed before a cold, precise voice responded. "The human accomplice." "How convenient." "I'd like to propose a meeting," Mike continued, unfazed. "Just you, me, and Niara Valen. We have matters to discuss." "You're in no position to make proposals," Cordath replied, though curiosity tinged his voice. "Actually, we are," Mike countered. "We've just transmitted Niara's evidence to the Galactic Council. But that's only one copy. We've sent backups to 17 different human outposts across 3 sectors." Another pause. "You're bluffing." "Humans are terrible bluffers," Mike said with calculated casualness. "It's a known weakness of our species. Ask any poker player." "What do you want?" Cordath finally asked, tension evident in his tone. "A conversation, face to face. 1 hour at these coordinates." Mike transmitted the location of their fortified yacht. "Come alone or the dead man switches we've set up will automatically release everything to the public networks." After the communication ended, Niara turned to Mike with wide eyes. 17 human outposts? "Pure fiction," he admitted with a grin. "But Cordath doesn't know that." The hegemony has always underestimated human ingenuity and our capacity for creative lying. It's a dangerous game, she warned, though her admiration was evident in the subtle glow of her skin. The most dangerous game is doing nothing, Mike replied, checking the yacht's modified systems one last time. Besides, I've got a few more surprises planned. As they waited, Mike found himself reflecting on the whirlwind events since Niara had crashed into his life. Just days ago, his biggest concern had been making Emmy's birthday special. Now he was preparing to confront one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy. Having second thoughts? Niara asked softly, noticing his contemplative expression. Not about helping you, he assured her, taking her hand. The cool blue of her skin contrasted beautifully with his suntanned fingers. Just thinking about how quickly life can change. Regrets? She pressed. Mike pulled her closer, his free hand tracing the luminous patterns on her cheek that brightened at his touch. Only that we didn't meet under different circumstances. In my culture, we have a saying, Niara murmured, leaning into his caress. The universe arranges the perfect collision of souls. Is that what we are? A cosmic collision? Mike asked, his lips hovering just above hers. The most beautiful kind, she whispered before closing the distance between them. Their kiss was interrupted by the scanner's alert. A small shuttle was descending toward their coordinates. He's coming alone, Niara confirmed, checking the readings. I'm surprised. He's curious, Mike explained, making final adjustments to his makeshift defenses, and arrogant enough to believe he can handle two fugitives without backup. They positioned themselves strategically, Mike beside the yacht's modified weapon system, Niara near the entrance with her pistol concealed but accessible. The shuttle landed with precision 30 meters from their position. The hatch opened to reveal a tall, imposing figure with slate-gray skin and eyes like polished obsidian. Commander Drax Kordath of the Hegemony Security Division moved with predatory grace, his ornate uniform emphasizing his military bearing. Quite the operation you've established, human, Kordath remarked, his gaze taking in the modified yacht. Impressive for a primitive species. We primitives are full of surprises, Mike replied evenly, like knowing when someone's committing galactic-scale crimes and keeping receipts. Kordath's expression hardened. Analyst Valen overstepped her authority. Those operations were classified for the greater good of the hegemony. Greater good? Niara stepped forward, anger evident in her voice. You orchestrated conflicts that killed millions, including my husband. Necessary sacrifices for galactic stability, Kordath dismissed. Something your emotional species could never understand. We understand plenty, Mike interjected, including the fact that the Galactic Council is reviewing Niara's evidence as we speak. A flicker of concern crossed Kordath's features before his composure returned. Evidence that will never be acted upon. The Council is susceptible to influence. Maybe, Mike acknowledged, but public opinion isn't. And if those 17 backup copies go public, not even the hegemony can control the fallout. For the first time, uncertainty showed in Kordath's obsidian eyes. What do you want? Simple. Your resignation from the hegemony, signed confessions of your crimes, and guarantees of safety for Niara and Limi, Mike stated. In return, we control the release of information, a slow leak rather than a flood. You expect me to trust the word of a human? Kordath sneered. I expect you to recognize when you're outmaneuvered, Mike replied calmly. A tense silence followed as Kordath calculated his options. Finally, he reached for a device at his belt. Not a weapon, but a communicator. This discussion is over, he stated coldly. My forces will be here momentarily. Your primitive defenses won't save you. Mike smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. He pressed a sequence on the yacht's modified control panel. Instantly, a localized electromagnetic pulse radiated outward, disabling Kordath's communicator and any hidden weapons. What have you done? Kordath demanded, genuine alarm in his voice. Created a dead zone, Mike explained. No signals in or out. And while we're chatting, the Galactic Council peacekeepers who received Niara's transmission are triangulating your position. They should be here in... He checked the captured bounty hunter's device. About 10 minutes. Kordath's composure finally cracked. This is impossible. You're just a mechanic. A human mechanic, Nyara corrected with pride. You should have studied their history, Kordath. Humans have been turning the tables on superior forces throughout their existence. The sound of approaching ships confirmed Mike's prediction. Through the forest canopy, the distinctive blue and silver vessels of the Galactic Council peacekeeping force descended, surrounding the area. Game over, Commander, Mike said as peacekeepers in formal uniforms emerged from the ships, weapons trained on Kordath. The lead peacekeeper, a stern-faced alien with crystalline features, approached with a formal document. Commander Drax Kordath, by authority of the Galactic Council, you are detained pending investigation of crimes against multiple sovereign worlds. As Kordath was led away in restraints, his final glare at Mike and Nyara carried equal parts hatred and disbelief, the look of someone who had severely underestimated his opponents. The peacekeeper commander turned to them. Analyst Valen, the Council extends its gratitude for your courage in bringing these matters to light. Your safety and that of your daughter are now guaranteed under Council protection. And what about them? Nyara asked, gesturing to Mike. They risked everything to help us. The human? The commander seemed surprised. The Council would be pleased to offer appropriate compensation for his inconvenience. Mike laughed. I missed a birthday dinner and got shot at by bounty hunters. Inconvenience might be understating it. 3 days later, Mike stood on the newly rebuilt landing pad of his refueling station, watching Emmy chase a floating toy with Lemmy. The Galactic Council had not only restored his property, but enhanced it with technology typically reserved for Central Worlds. Quite the upgrade, Nyara commented, joining him. Her blue skin glowed in the sunset light, more radiant than ever now that the weight of fear had been lifted from her shoulders. The Council's way of saying, sorry about the mess, Mike replied with a smile, though I think they were more impressed by how a primitive human outmaneuvered one of their top commanders. They've offered me a position, Nyara said after a moment, heading a new oversight division to prevent abuses like Kordath's. Mike felt a twinge in his chest. That's wonderful, you deserve it. It would mean relocating, she continued, watching his reaction carefully, to a central administrative world. I understand, Mike said, trying to keep disappointment from his voice. Emmy and I will miss you both, but I was thinking, Nyara interrupted, taking his hand, that perhaps you might consider relocating too. The Council mentioned they could use someone with your creative approach to problem solving. Mike's heart raced. Are you offering me a job, Analyst Valen? I'm offering you a future, she corrected, her skin brightening with that now familiar glow. For all of us, if you want it. Mike pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him, despite their different worlds, different biologies, different everything. You know, he murmured against her silver blue braids, when I skipped my birthday dinner to help fix your ship, I never expected this. Nyara laughed, the sound like music. The universe arranges the perfect collision of souls, remember? As they sealed their new beginning with a kiss, Emmy and Lemmy's delighted laughter floated across the landing pad. The sound of a family forged in crisis but built to last across the stars.